RedHawks.com. Now, let's go live to Wings, etc. For the Red Hawks Coaches Show.
Welcome in. It is the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau. And we're going to be talking Red Hawk basketball with Coach Rick Ray, Sage Tolbert, Red Hawks sophomore post player. I don't know. We'll determine with Coach Ray just exactly what the position is for Sage, one of the Red Hawks big men. And that'll be coming up a little bit later on in the show. We're going to invite you over for lunch. If you don't have lunch plans, this is a great place to stop in and grab some award-winning jumbo wings, where on Mondays they are just 79 cents. On Mondays, they've got other specials throughout the week, food and drink specials. Their menu includes their freshly made burgers, their wraps, subs, quesadillas, entree salads. They have smoked ribs and much more. And if you're coming for lunch, check out their daily half-pound lunch specials. They start at just $7.99. Let's talk it over with Coach Rick Ray. Coach, how are you? You logged a lot of miles the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's amazing here. We still got more to go here. But this is just a personal deal. I get back home from that road trip, and obviously you were on it with us, and you know how grueling that could be at times. But I get home, and my son, my 6-year-old son, has left me the kindest note of just saying that he missed me and he loved me. And he made some cashew cookies, and he left them on the table for me. So,
like Santa Claus.
Yeah, it's just, kids always put things in perspective. I always say they're like puppies. They're like dogs. No matter what's going on in your life, when you come through that door, they just come pound on you because they're so happy to see you. So, but obviously things didn't turn out the way we wanted them to turn out on that road trip. But just getting back and seeing a note like that from a 6-year-old son just kind of gives you a little bit of perspective about what's really important.
Boy, I just personally, there is nothing like having your kids run towards you and say "Daddy" and give you a big hug. I mean, how does it get better than that?
Yeah, I mean, and in their mind, all they want to do is like, hey, what are we doing to watch the Chiefs game? What's the setup here? We're going to get something to eat, or we're going to watch it at home, or
give me the game plan.
Yeah, that's all they're concerned about. They don't care about how long you've been on the road trip and things like that. They just want to get back into having some fun.
We're going to talk with Sage Tolbert coming up in just a few minutes. The Red Hawks right in the middle, well, a little past the midway point. They just played their 6th game of 8 games away from the Show Me Center, and they're getting ready to head on the road for 2 more. They will be taking on Youngstown State Sunday, and then on Tuesday they'll play the Ohio State Buckeyes. Let's flash back to what happened on Saturday night against Drake University, a team that was a co-champion in the Missouri Valley Conference last year with Loyola Chicago. You led the game for 30 minutes. They came back in the end, hit their free throws down the stretch, and were able to rally and beat you 78-73. What were your initial thoughts on that game? Because all 7 of their previous wins, no one had scored 60 points against them. Even Murray State, who lost by 10, only scored 53. You go to their house and score 73 points.
Yeah, well, I was pleased with our offensive performance because Drake is a really sound defensive team. They run a Virginia pack line defense where they're just trying to exhaust the offense and make you stay patient and not get the ball into the paint. And we talked to our guys extensively about, hey, the most important thing is don't get frustrated that you're not able to make a play right away against their defense, because that's what it's designed to do, and you got to have a tremendous amount of patience in order to do that. But for us, the thing that's been our bugaboo and something that really concerns me, because we harp on it all the time, is we're just continually giving the ball to the other team and turning the ball over and giving them points. In our past 2 games against Abilene Christian and Drake, we've given up a total of 50 points off turnovers. And so you talk about what we did offensively against Drake. Just think about what we'd have done if we'd have taken care of the basketball. And so I think that's the first thing, is we've got to figure out a way of being better of taking care of the basketball. The other thing is we missed 3 front ends of a 1-and-1, down the stretch. You shoot 30% from the free throw line in the second half, and then you're taking away opportunities to get points. I know when I worked at Indiana State, and the coach I worked for, and he was just notorious about he didn't believe in the whole confidence thing and things like that. So you'd have an opportunity where a young man would go have a layup opportunity. He missed a layup, but he got fouled. And so he would go up and miss the first free throw. And the first thing he would say is, had a chance for 3, now we only have a chance for 1. And he would say it out loud. Obviously, the kid on the free throw line could hear it. And so now the kid on the free throw line is even tighter because now he knows that coach is just going to lose bust a gasket because if he misses this free throw. But at the end of the day, we had opportunities to get 6 points, and we never got that opportunity because we missed the front end of the 1-and-1. And then the other front end of the 1-and-1, we made it, but then we missed the second one. So you're talking about 1 point that we got out of a total of 8 that were available to us. And when you're trying to win games down the stretch, you just can't do that.
And what was surprising is 2 of the front ends of the 1-and-1s were your 2 best free throw shooters. And they, had been hitting free throws. I think Alex Caldwell had hit 12 consecutive free throws prior to stepping to the line. And DQ Nicholas, had just come off a game where he went 14 for 14. So it was kind of unexpected that those guys would step up and not drill them.
Yeah, and like you said, those guys have done a tremendous job for us from the charity stripe in the past. And then also with those guys being your primary ball handlers, they're going to have the ball in their hands a lot down the stretch. And so you want guys that can make free throws, handling the basketball for you. So we felt confident those guys stepping up and knocking down free throws. And that's what you want. When you're behind, we weren't behind. I think we were behind 2 points. You want to be able to go up there and, stop the clock. And that's the best way to come back in a ball game is to make your free throws. And we just simply didn't do that.
4 for 13 from the free throw line in the second half. And it kind of came out of nowhere because in the second half against Abilene Christian, you went 21 for 22. In the first half against Drake, you went 9 for 10, and then suddenly 4 for 13. I mean, you just didn't see it coming.
Yeah, and that's the thing about free throws. You just never know because there's different sorts of scenarios, and each situation brings a different pressure. And so you don't know how guys are going to react when they step to that free throw line because they've never been in that situation, especially for a guy like DQ Nicholas. So it's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, we've got to make sure we do 2 things. We've got to stop turning the ball over and giving points to the other team, and then we've got to knock down our free throws.
And, Sage Tolbert hit his first 7 free throws in a row in the first half first and to start the second half, 7 in a row. You can see he looks a little more confident from the line this year.
Well, he's more confident because he spends a lot of time on it. It's really one of the first things that he does. We practice in the morning, and every time I walk down, I see him. He's at the charity stripe, working on his free throw stroke, and he starts off with form shooting. He knows some of the things that he needed to improve on with his free throw stroke, and then some of the things fundamentally had to change with his shot in order for him to be a better shooter. And so he's a type of guy, because of how big and strong and athletic he is, he's going to get to the free throw line a lot. And so what you don't want is you don't want him doing all the work to get to that free throw line, and then people really just maybe fouling him on purpose rather than giving him a possible 2 points. Hey, let's just send him to the line here and see if he can go. And he's done a really good job of improving his free throw shooting.
Yeah, the old hack-a-shack when you're not a good free throw shooter. Just watching his jump shot, it looks different this year.
Yes, there's no question about it. And it's hard to change someone's shot.
Especially this deep into a basketball career, right?
Right, because it's something that they've been doing their whole life. And so what it takes is a lot of muscle memory. And so in order for you to change a shot, you have to go in on your own and shoot just shoot a ton of shots. And sometimes the thing that you got to understand when you're talking to these kids about changing their shot, you're not going to have success right away. And so that's the thing that becomes frustrating for them, is because it's a microwave society. They want that instant success. And I said, if we go through this, you have to understand in your mindset, when we start changing your shot, you're going to miss more than you used to make. That's going to happen.
So immediately you're thinking, I'll just go back to the old way because it was better.
Yes, man. What you're not, no, it's not better. You're not doing it right yet. You just got to give it time to continue and do it the right way, because there's simple things that you're not doing every single time, and you're not going to automatically be able to change that because you've been shooting this way for 10 years. You've been shooting this way for 5 years. And to you, it's right because it's muscle memory. So if you're going to be the type of guy that gets frustrated because you're missing shots when we're going through this shot change, then we shouldn't do it at all. because like this is going to happen. You're going to miss more than you normally make, but you can't get frustrated with it. You got to stick with it. And the other thing is you got to spend a ton of time on your own outside of the coaches. And if you're not willing to do that, then let's just leave it alone.
You know, something else, you said all the hours that he spent in the gym, you can tell he spent a lot of hours in the weight room as well from last season.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you this, and I really believe this. The biggest jump that you need to make with your body and also with your game is after your first season of playing collegiate basketball. And obviously Sage fits that description because last year was his first year playing collegiate basketball. And then more importantly, when you're talking about front line guys where physicality really comes into play. And so like guards can get away with a little bit because it's not as a physical game as it is with guys that play in the front court. But for those front court guys, now they kind of wake up, and there's no age divisions in college basketball. In AAU basketball, 17-year-olds are playing against 17-year-olds. 13-year-olds are playing against 13-year-olds. Well, you might have a guy who's a true college freshman who's 17 or 18 years old going up against a guy who's 22 years old, who's a fifth-year senior, has been lifting weights for 5 years. And so now just from a maturity standpoint and experience standpoint, he's going to be able to go up and it's like, oh, my goodness, now I understand what I need to do in order to be a good basketball player. So to Sage's credit, and also with Coach Brew, Tony Bertowski, he's done an unbelievable job with our guys in the weight room. But a lot of the credit has to go to our players because we always say that hour that you spend in the weight room pales in comparison to the other 23 hours about how you live your life. If you're not eating right, if you're not getting a ton of rest, if you're not drinking a ton of water, then that 1 hour in the weight room doesn't really mean anything because you destroyed your body outside of that. So these guys have to be built in as far as like what they're eating, getting their sleep, and then also hydrating.
How many times do you see a freshman or a junior college guy come into the collegiate ranks and have already been on a nutrition program? Is it pretty rare, or are you starting to see it more now that we are a little bit more nutritious conscious and we know more things now? Are you seeing it implemented, or when guys get here, it's like, boy, I've never even dealt with something like this?
Well, you see it, but I mean, here's the thing that you understand, and I think everybody can kind of relate to this. It's expensive to eat healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to a McDonald's or someplace like that, and you can get a hamburger pretty cheap. But if you want to get a grilled chicken sandwich, it just the expense goes up. You go to a grocery store and you want to get a bag of chips, you can get a bag of chips for pretty cheap. But if you want to get something that's right for your body and go get fruit and yogurt and those types of things, the expense goes up. So it really boils down to sometimes do guys have the expenses in order to be able to eat healthy? And unfortunately, a lot of these guys come into the program, they just like, hey, I just need to eat. and so they can't do that. But then also they haven't been exposed to it. And so the first time you sit down and you talk to a young man about, okay, how many times are you eating a day in order for you to get bigger and stronger? And they say, well, I eat 3 times a day. You can't do that. And so you sit down and you explain to them the science behind it. You have to eat 6 times a day. And they're blown away from that with that fact because they've never heard it before because they haven't been exposed to it. You know, that old adage of getting up, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It's true. I mean, if you don't get up and eat breakfast, then right away you start eating away at your muscles because your metabolism has to come from somewhere. And so they got to eat breakfast. They got to eat a snack. They got to eat lunch. They got to eat another snack. They got to eat dinner. And then for them, the second most important meal of the day is eating something right before they go to bed. Old guys like us, they say we shouldn't be eating after 8 o'clock. I mean, but for them, they definitely should be eating something right before they go to bed because it's really the only time their metabolism slows down. And so for them, their metabolism is running hard the whole day, so they're just burning off everything they eat. But when they sleep is the only time their metabolism slows down, so it's important that they grab a couple slices of pizzas or grab some cupcakes or something, but put calories on their body right before they go to bed.
And it's interesting because when the coaching staffs are with the players and what you guys do on road trips, all you do is eat. I mean, you guys are eating all the time. You're always going out to grab something to eat. As a coach, you don't have the metabolism of a ferret anymore. So, I mean, you kind of got to watch what you eat.
Well, I don't, though. That's the problem. I just eat like I'm a player when I'm on the road. And it's the worst thing that you can do because we always give these guys a ton of food.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting sandwiches for them. We're going out to eat. We're getting up for breakfast. And so I sit there like an idiot, and I do the same thing the players do. And I'm like, oh, I'm not practicing today or I'm not playing a game. And so you really got to watch it, and I do a poor job of that because especially with desserts, I'm a guy I love. Any sort of situation we go to, there's a dessert to get, I'm getting that dessert.
All right, as we get ready to talk to Sage Tolbert here in just a few minutes, one thing I did want to ask you about, Coach, we have not really talked about the two highly touted players that you signed during the signing period, and it's Vashon High School point guard Phil Russell, and then I'm guessing his name is Ramin. Okay, so Ramin Hinton out of Chicago. Hinton 6'4", 180, and Russell listed at 5'10", 165. Go ahead and start with Phil Russell, the Vashon point guard, a guy who has done a ton of winning in his high school career.
Well, I think you just hit it on the head. That's the first thing that stands out to you about Phil is that he's a winner. He's coming from a Vashon program. That's all they've done is win state championships. And so the main reason he sticks out to you is not just because he's winning, that he's a leader on that winning basketball team. So they have a culture over there that Coach Irons has created. And Phil is really the guy when things start going wrong that he brings the team together and he gets those guys going on the right path. There are the people in St. Louis, they have a ton of respect for Phil and his game, not just him as a player, but him as a person too. So you go talk to rival schools that Vashon has played, and they just rave about what they think about Phil. So we not only think we're getting a tremendous basketball player in Phil because he's a guy that can do all the things that we want him to do. He can play the point guard position. He can play off the ball. He can really handle the basketball. He's got some composure to him. He can make plays not just for himself but also for others. But the biggest thing that stands out to me is just his leadership qualities and how tough of a kid he is. And so we'll come into the program and he'll never be afraid of any moment that steps up because he's been in those type of moments, being in the state championship games and tournaments his whole life. I mean, he's always played against competition, whether it's for his high school team or AAU team. So we're really excited about what he's going to bring to the table for us.
You know, one of the high school basketball powerhouses in southeast Missouri is Charleston High School. Well, Vashon ran into Charleston in the state semifinals last year, and Russell almost single-handedly beat him. I think he hit 4 threes, had about 20 points. So, I mean, you know, the guys at Charleston High School know all about Phil Russell.
Yeah, and he's a guy that understands. I mean, he's got a young man going on his team from going to Kentucky. So he has to realize when it's time for him to try to score and when it's time to get him the ball. And he really does a great job of understanding when he needs to step up and score and when he needs to find people. So they obviously have a really talented team, and so he wants to distribute the ball to those talented players, but he also knows when it's time for, hey, I need to step up here and score as well.
How much of a challenge is it at Division I for a guy at 5'10"?
Well, I think it depends on do you know who you are. And I think what oftentimes, talking about a guy like Alex Caldwell or DQ, they've been able to get into the paint at the high school level and have success around the rim. But when they get to college, they don't understand that they can't have that type of success. So getting those guys to understand, hey, we still want you getting those paint touches. We still want you getting to the rim. But now you're going up against 6'10" guys. You're going up against 6'9" guys. But not only that, but coaches that are designed to keep you out of the paint. And so you've got to understand, hey, this is the time for you to kick out. But they've always had success at the high school level being able to go in and finish around the rim because they never came up against those type of players and athletes, and they never came up against those type of a scheme. So I think that's the big difference is those guys understanding and seeing when to kick out and when is their time to attack.
Ramin Hinton out of Chicago. Now, I read a lot on the internet about him. You know, I knew you guys were recruiting him, and that eventually he signed with you, gave you a verbal first, and then ends up signing. Man, he was recruited by some big programs, namely Bruce Weber recruited him at Kansas State, and basketball people and recruiting people all said the same thing. Boy, SEMO got a steal with this guy because there were a lot of big programs in on Ramin Hinton.
Yeah, I tell you what, I've known the guys over at Curie for a long time.
Curie High School in Chicago, for those who don't know.
Yeah, and they've had a ton of success. They won the Chicago Public League Championship last year, and it's not their first rodeo. They've been doing things like that for a long time. And so Mike Oliver is the head coach over there. And then they have an assistant over there named Larry Wallace, who I'm really close to as well. And then our assistant, Terrence Crump, is also from Chicago and knows those guys as well. So we kind of always had some people surrounding Ramin that really felt strongly about us and what we could do for Ramin, and not just for him on the court. They were more concerned about, hey, how is he going to be handled off the court, because they wanted to make sure he was going into a structured environment where there's going to be a care for him, not just on the basketball court, because they knew on the basketball court he's talented. He's going to figure that out. But, like, are these people going to care for him and make sure that he's on the straight and narrow off the court? And so I've had a long-standing relationship with those guys. But it's funny. I was talking to Mike, and his recruitment started to grow and get bigger and bigger. And I was, sometimes it's like playing poker, right? That old Kenny Rogers song. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And so I was getting to the point, hey, this is getting a little bit over our head. I don't know if this is, worth our time. And it's the hardest thing to do in recruiting, especially for young assistants, is like, hey, we're in this top 5 or we're in this top 3. Okay, that's great, but can we get him? I mean, there's often times when I'm in somebody's top 5, but we're number 5, and we're always going to be number 5. Or we're in their top 3, but, yeah, we're not really in it. We're number 3. And so I just didn't want to be in one of those situations where we invest in a lot of time recruiting Ramin and we miss out on our number 2 guy because we're spending so much time with him. I wanted to make sure, hey, is this attainable? And as the thing went on and we actually ended up getting him, and even when he verbally committed, basketball now is getting a little bit like football, where a verbal commitment doesn't mean anything at this point in time. And so basketball is a little bit more of a gentleman's agreement that when a young man commits that people leave him alone. But that didn't happen in this case, so we had to spend a lot of time with Ramin making sure that we held on to that verbal commitment, and it became something that binding with that national letter of intent. But the bottom line was, talking to the guys over at Curie High School, I had recruited a young man a long time ago when I was at Purdue. And we had done a tremendous job. My head coach there, Matt Painter, spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time groundwork. And at the last minute, the kid committed and went somewhere else, and it was a total shock and surprise. And so the guys told me, hey, we felt bad about that. He said, because we really respected you. And in the game of basketball, when you lose a recruit like that, he says that could change your career. Hey,
Sure.
We don't know how your head coach is. He may come in and say, hey, man, you didn't get it done recruiting-wise. We got to find somebody else. And so we thought that was something that could affect your career, and we felt bad about it. And he said this was like a payback, for all of that time and work that you put in with the previous kid. And it was funny to them. I was like, hey, yeah, you guys probably could have done that a little bit earlier than now. It's been like 10 years since it happened. I needed to recruit before then. But that's what the relationship piece in recruiting, that's what ends up being really important. So, I could have handled that the wrong way back then and been really upset with those guys and say, hey, man, you guys screwed me on this. I'm never talking to you again. But it really was out of their control as well, too. So just making sure that you always uphold yourself in the right way. So now 15 years, 10 years later, it comes back working out for me because I treated those guys the right way when that thing went sour when I was at Purdue.
Boy, you say that a gentleman's agreement, if someone has verbaled, as you know, it's not even a gentleman's agreement if the guy is already on a roster and has played a couple of years. I mean, it just seems like, I don't know, it didn't seem like it used to be like that.
No, it's really changed, and it's sad, but I follow college football, love it, and you see all these guys that I'm 100% committed to this school. I'm going to take visits to these other 2 places. Well, then you're not 100% committed. That's like me saying I'm 100% committed to my wife. I'm going to go on these 2 dates, baby, and see how this goes, though. That wouldn't go over
not
very
gonna
well.
fly.
Yeah, you're not committed. So, but in football, it's always been that way. I remember Jerry Tarkanian when he was at UNLV, when a young man would commit, and he had the line. He always say, "Now we know who we got to beat." And so he just amp up the recruiting even more then. So it's becoming more that way. You hate to see it because we as coaches, we're the ones that are controlling it. We can stop it. I mean, and so I don't blame the young men because, like, they're getting this information from somebody, and it's coming from us as coaches. So if we as coaches did the right thing, this would never be a problem.
I mean, you just had a guy, I believe, verbal, a few months ago, and then all of a sudden someone, a different school swooped in and got him, right? I mean, you just went through something like that.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is we told the young man, we walked him through everything about, hey, if you make this commitment, this is what's going to happen. I mean, there's going to start being negative recruiting. Someone's going to say this, and someone's going to do this, and somebody's going to offer this, and then all of a sudden, hey, we're interested now, but they weren't interested before. And so I said, this is going to spur a lot of things that's going to happen. And so if you're not prepared for that, don't commit. And my assistant was going crazy. He was like, no, don't tell him that. I was just like, well, no, because it just doesn't make any sense. We want to make sure that, hey, if you say this, you're committed, because what we do as coaches, and when you tell me that you're coming, obviously you're not the only person that we're recruiting at your position. And so oftentimes, I mean, when you're recruiting a young man wants to hear, Coach, am I the only one that you guys are recruiting at this position? And I always say no. And they get upset about that. And I say, well, just like you're looking at 3 to 5 schools, we're looking at 3 to 5 players. I mean, that's only right. So if you're telling me that you want to come, then what I'm going to do right away is pick up the phone and call those other young men and say, hey, we've got a commitment from somebody at your position. We appreciate it, but we didn't want you hearing this from social media or anybody else. And I said, so once you tell me you're coming, we can't go down the path again of recruiting somebody else if you decommit. Because now, just to put yourself in this situation, I've told you that we've gotten somebody else. And then I pick up the phone a month later and say, hey, that kid told me he's not coming now. Would you like us to recruit you again? And the guy's going to look at you like, man, go kick rocks. We're not interested anymore.
So, I mean, it's got ripple effects.
Yes. And so we tell these young men that if you're not really, truly committed to it, don't do it. Because once you do it, we're going to do the right thing and make sure we pick up the phone and call these other young men that we were recruiting at your position.
We didn't talk about Ramin Hinton's game, Coach. Talk about him at 6'4" and how you see him fitting in to your scheme.
Yeah, he's going to fit in anywhere he would have went, because I thought from the evaluation, it used to be when you go out and watch young men play, playing hard was something that be expected. And being tough was something to be expected. Now playing hard and being tough has become a skill level. And so that's something for him that I didn't doubt at all. He was, I thought, by far the hardest playing young man that I scouted that whole kind of spring evaluation, summer evaluation. I just thought that he competed at the highest level. He's a guy that's diving on the floor for loose balls. He's keeping the ball alive with offensive rebounds. He's sprinting and running the court. He's playing while he's hurt. I mean, and he's talking all the time. He just got an unbelievable pace to his game. And so that's going to allow him to be a good basketball player no matter what position he plays or where he would have went, because he plays so hard. But the part about this stands out to me, he's an unbelievable athlete. He's got big-time length, and he can really, really finish around the basket and get to the paint. So he's that guy that when he gets in there and he's slashing in there against 2 people, he can go up above the rim and finish. He can kind of sneak his way in there and get to the other side of the rim and finish. He's just a relentless guy, penetrating, getting to the paint, and making plays and having big-time finishes.
Is much of a shooter?
He can make shots. That's not his strong point at this point in time, but you have to guard him. It's not where you close out to him and you just don't worry about his three-point shooting. But he wants to drive the ball first, but he's a guy that's going to come in and shoot around 30 to 33% from the three-point line at the beginning, and then he's going to get better at it. But there's not going to be a lot of people that's going to be able to keep him out of the paint right off the bat because he's so athletic and so long.
So the 2 recruits, Phil Russell and Ramin Hinton, there you go. That's the background and the scouting report. By the way, Jeff Hansa, the Director of Strategic Communications at Southeast, has let us know that DQ Nicholas has been named the OVC Co-Freshman of the Week. Had a big 21-point game against Abilene Christian where he went 14 of 14 from the free throw line. It's fun to watch him play, Coach. He is really athletic, and you can see him getting better.
Yeah, I tell you what, we got a chance to go watch him play when he was at his prep school, and then I went back there and watched him play a pickup game and play open gym. And so his athleticism stood out to me. He was one of the best rebounding guards at that height that I've seen. And so he was willing to go in there and mix it up, and he had the athleticism to do so. We did a jumping test, Coach Brew, our strength coach, and he jumped the highest of anybody on our team. Not just he had the highest vertical, he jumped the highest of anybody on our team. And, I mean, it's just like he is a supreme athlete, and now he's starting to figure out things about basketball-wise, skill-wise. He's trying to see things behind him, knowing when to attack, when not to attack. And so I'm really happy for him that he got this honor, but it's all the work that he's put in on the court in order to get to this honor. So I think sometimes people see that and they're like, oh, well, you know, this just happened. No, this happened when he got here in the summertime. This happened, 10 o'clock at night when everybody else is sleeping. He's just in the gym on his own. So he's putting in a lot of time, and it's a really well-deserved honor. You like to see guys that work that hard get rewarded for it, because everybody at some point in time wants a pat on the back. And him getting recognized like this is a pat on the back for him.
Okay, we're going to talk to Sage Tolbert here coming up shortly. Sage, as you just mentioned with DQ, went to prep school. We'll ask Sage a little bit about, the difference between playing high school ball, prep school ball. But in terms of that transitionary year, how much, in your experience, does that help prepare someone for the rigors of Division I basketball?
Well, I think it's a huge help. And I think what people don't realize is the biggest help, it has nothing to do with basketball, has absolutely nothing to do with basketball. It's now when they come to your university, this is not the first time that they've been away from home. So some of the homesickness that you have, and the guys experience that, they've already experienced that because they've been off to prep school and they've been through that. So now when they come here, they've already been through that, so you don't have to go through that part of like them wanting to go home, them missing home, and those things. And it's a real thing now, and it really affects guys' basketball game. And so that's the first thing I think that really pays dividends is when those guys go to prep school, they've been away from home already. The second thing is just now they have the opportunity to work on their game. It's not the first time that they're just relegated to just being a high school player where they have these time restrictions of when they can work on their game. Oftentimes now when they go to prep school, when they're there by themselves, there's nothing else to do. And so what they do is they get in the gym and they work on their game with the head coach, the assistant coach, or just go on their own because they're bored. There's nothing else to do, so they go play basketball. But then the other part of it, that's just a year more of maturity for that young man. Now instead of him coming to you as a 17-year-old kid or an 18-year-old kid, now he's coming to you as a 19-year-old guy who's had a strength and conditioning program, who's hopefully been treated the right way eating-wise. And so now they're bigger, they're stronger, they've been exposed to more basketball. And the other big thing I think about going to prep schools and recruiting, they're now oftentimes not just the only best player on the team. They're around other guys that are good too. So when they go out and they play great competition in prep school, they're also getting it on a day-to-day basis, that competition in practice as well. Because when they're in high school, there's nobody for them to go against on a day-to-day basis in practice. So they're dominating in practice and they're not getting better. But when they go to prep school, there's other guys like them that look like them, that have the same body like them. And now when they get to the rim, they might get their shot blocked for the first time. They're not able just to go by anybody at any point in time. They're not able to get every offensive rebound. And so now they're getting competition on a day-in, day-out basis. And so they've been exposed to that. And so now when they come to practice, and you practice on a collegiate team, now it's not a shock to their system when they can't do the things that they were doing in high school on a day-to-day basis in practice, because now they've been exposed to it.
You know, you brought in a few more prep school guys the last couple of years. Are you focusing more on that, or just these things have just opened up?
Well, I think it's two things. I think the first thing is we've had some success with some prep school guys, and then some of the prep school people that we deal with, because of our relationships, they've seen that, hey, Southeast Missouri State, SEMO, has had some success with some prep school guys that went there and been good. So they reach out to us more about some of their guys. And then just some of the ties that we have. So, for instance, the prep school that Sage went to, the guy who helps run that program is a Clemson grad. And so I coached both of those guys at Clemson. And so I have a relationship with them. And so they called us and told us about Sage and called us and told us about other young men. And so we're able to go right away because they're calling us first because of the relationship, and they're going to try to help us in our program. So you have those situations. But then also the other part of it is when you go to like a prep school tournament and you're going to see maybe one guy, you're going to stay there for the whole tournament.
Sure.
And so now there's going to be other guys there to catch your eye. And so now you start investigating those and you start just kind of going from that point forward. So it doesn't really come a situation where you're just recruiting one guy and ends up being you're recruiting more people because you went to a tournament. There's 16 teams there. I'm not going all the way to Vermont or going all the way to Houston or Charlotte and just watch one guy. I'm going to stay there and watch the whole game, the whole tournament, and now I'll come back with a ton of names.
Well, we will talk with Sage Tolbert when we come back. Let's take a quick timeout. Coach Ray will join us for the final segment, but Sage Tolbert will be our guest when we return. We are at Wings, Etc. in Cape. It's the Red Hawks Coaches Show on SEMO ESPN.
TV, Mecca Sports Bar, Wings, Etc. in Cape and Jackson beg to differ. They take their sports.
We will be over in Jackson for the Coaches Show. Hope you'll join us then. The Red Hawks are engaging in finals week as we speak, so they will not be in action again until Sunday when they head on the road yet again and will play Youngstown State University. That's in Youngstown, Ohio. And then they will swing through Columbus to take on the nationally rated Ohio State Buckeyes. I think Ohio State may be up to 6th nationally in the polls. So where are they? Number 3. Sage Tolbert says number 3. So, heck, they may be ranked even better than that. By the time the Red Hawks get there, we shall see. Let's welcome in Sage Tolbert. How are you, Sage?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us. You know, you and I were talking a little while ago about you're from Richmond, Texas. Describe just exactly where Richmond is.
I would say it's probably like 30 minutes west of Houston. Basically, it's Houston. But the school district I went to is Richmond, Sugar Land, Fort Bend County.
And what was it like growing up in a big city like that?
I lived a lot of places in Houston, so basically I was just used to the bright lights, you know, schools everywhere. Not really much trees, but just the city life.
The city life. So it's a little different in Cape Girardeau than it was in Houston, Texas.
There's a lot of different.
What were the things that struck you the first time you came to Cape Girardeau and said, kind of like it here?
I just like that it was just like a small city. Everything was about SEMO. You know what I'm saying? And just it's like only like one thing, like one mall. Probably one Walmart. Just small town.
2 McDonald's though.
Oh,
yeah. We got multiple McDonald's, and we got Wings, etc. in Cape and in Jackson. So we talked about going to prep school. How much do you think that did for preparing you to play Division I basketball?
I feel like it helped me like on and off the court. On the court, I felt like just that extra year of experience really helped me. Just mature a little bit, my body. Get bigger, stronger a little bit. Like develop my shot at the time, and I feel like off the court, it really helped me like leave home. You know what I'm saying? I've never really like been away from my parents or whatever, my family, but the extra year just helped me prepare for college.
Well, you heard Coach Ray talking about guys being homesick. Did you have any homesickness the first time early on in your prep school career, since you had always been in Texas and then all of a sudden you're in Charlotte, North Carolina?
I feel like I should have, but I really didn't. I feel like basketball really distracted me from a lot of things and just kept me occupied.
All right, let's talk about revamping your jump shot. How much was that in terms of just time staking, and how much time went into doing that? And did you think you were going to be able to successfully do it when you didn't have a whole lot of success early?
When it came to my jump shot, the first thing I had to do was just recognize that something had to change, and this past offseason I had some time off, and I felt like that's when I really could just start working on my form. And I just made it my routine every day just to form, shoot, and just try to better my shot.
How many shots do you think you got up a day while you were revamping?
I'm not sure. Like after a while, I just fell in love with just the process, so I just wanted to do it. So I really wasn't counting. So, but if I had to take a guess, I'd probably say like at least 500 a day.
Man, that's
just
a lot of shots.
Yeah,
it's a lot of shots. So when you're taking those shots, you usually have to have someone in the gym with you, right?
Yeah, sometimes.
So who was in the gym most of the time with you while you were working on it?
Probably my roommate DQ Nicholas. We were in the gym a lot together.
How about that young man? I mean, he was just named co-OVC Freshman of the Week. He looks like he's going to be a really good player for the Red Hawks.
Yeah, he's doing good. I just told him he was the co-Freshman of the Week. I'm sure he'd be happy about it.
Well, a guy also, Coach Ray was talking about the highest jumper on the team. He's not talking about just a vertical leap. You got to be up there in terms of vertical leap. I know Alex Caldwell has a big vertical leap. DQ does. I know you do because I've seen you jump.
Yeah. Me personally, I didn't participate in that contest.
Okay.
But I say, looking at height, he's the highest jumper. I mean, his feet gets the highest off the ground. But reaching the highest, I think I'd take that.
So you want to get involved in this competition is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Your free throws. Last year, I know you're getting used to Division I basketball. The free throw numbers, you probably would have liked to have seen them a little higher. You put in a lot of time. How tough is it to improve your free throw stroke?
I mean, I feel like it comes down to technique and confidence. And I feel like once I got the technique right, just this year I feel like I'm a little bit more confident at the line. And I feel like just as my game continues to develop, like I'll just start hitting them more in late game situations especially.
Yeah, now talk about late game situations. How different is it? What's the pressure feel like? I mean, does it feel different when you're shooting a free throw, with 12 minutes to play in the first half versus shooting a free throw with 25 seconds left in the second half? Does it feel different? Can you feel pressure?
I mean, it feels the exact same, and it's the exact same, but sometimes it's like a voice in your head, telling you can't miss it. And sometimes that voice may get so loud that you may actually feel a little nervous. But I feel like I just try to not pay attention to that and just try to shoot it the exact same way. Like shooting a free throw late game situation, same as shooting in the first half, same as shooting it in warm up, same as shooting it in the gym by yourself. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's muscle memory. You hit your first 7 free throws against Drake University on Saturday night. What did you think of Drake? They're the defending Missouri Valley Conference champions. That is a strong basketball league, and you outplayed them for 30 minutes of that 40-minute game.
I feel like they were a good team, you know what I'm saying? My teammates, they kept giving me the ball. I give credit to them, and I kept getting to the line. And knocking down free throws is just an important part of winning the basketball game. I feel like we did that until a certain point in the game.
How much do you work on your footwork? Because I know a guy who's going to be playing close to the basket, footwork is maximally important.
Probably every day you need to work on your footwork. Just you can move any way you want to, especially a guy that's taller, you know what I'm saying?
What's your favorite part of practice? You may say nothing is your favorite part of practice. What is your favorite part of practice, and what is your least favorite part of practice?
I would say my favorite part of practice is probably when we do any drill that has to do with, like, competing. I know me and my team, we compete a lot, and especially when we're competing for something where the loser has to run or there's some type of punishment involved, I know it just gets really tense in practice. That's my favorite part.
Who talks the most in practice?
I say me.
You?
I say me. Yeah.
All right. And who more often than not, who do you go up against the most in practice? Or does it vary?
Probably the other forwards. So there'll be Darius, Q, or Isaiah. So, yeah.
And as far as getting ready to head out on this next road trip, man, can you believe all the miles that we've logged so far, and we still got more to go?
Yeah, we've been on the road a lot the past 2 weeks, but it's really been fun.
I was going to say, you hear coaches say a lot. That's where the team bonding comes in, is when you're on the road together and you get a chance to bond as a team. Have you seen a little bit of that? Have you felt kind of some bonding going on with these guys?
Yeah, I feel like it has been a little bit of bonding because, together we've just been with the team, really. We haven't really been seeing anyone else, been in the hotel together, playing games together, on the bus together.
Tell us about your recruitment here and who reached out to you first, and talk about the process of you coming and giving a commitment and coming to play here at SEMO.
I was playing in the tournament at Combine Academy, and Coach Ray decided to come watch me play, and I think I played pretty well that game. He talked to me after the game, gave me his contact information, and I started texting Coach Ray, and he just told me just the things about SEMO, and we set up a visit. And when I visited, I just liked it. So I canceled the rest of my visits like a couple of days after. I just knew I wanted to come in.
That's awesome. What did you think the first time you saw the Show Me Center and said, man, we're going to be playing our games here?
But when I'm recruited by schools, I searched up on Google the arenas or whatever.
Yep.
And I already knew Show Me Center was pretty nice. But when I saw it in person, it looks a lot better in person. I was just excited to get to playing there.
Okay, so as a player, we hear everybody say how important facilities are, and playing in a nice arena, and the Show Me Center is certainly one of the nicest in the Ohio Valley Conference. We're asking you, how important is it for you? How important was it for you that SEMO had great facilities?
I feel like that was one of the top things that I was looking for at schools recruiting me. The Show Me Center was one of the things that really sealed the deal for me.
See, there you go. You hear it straight from the athlete. Facilities are really, really important. All right, what was on the lunch menu today?
Right now I got some fried pickles.
Fried pickles. See, we're always talking about those fried pickles. Well, enjoy. We enjoyed having you on the show, and we will see you at Youngstown, Ohio on Sunday.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, Sage Tolbert, and we will take a timeout. We'll talk with Coach Ray about the upcoming schedule, including taking on the Youngstown State Penguins on Sunday. You're listening to the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings on SEMO ESPN. Be coming up next Monday after the Red Hawks continue or wrap up their road trip as they go through the state of Ohio. It is Youngstown State Sunday, third-ranked Ohio State on Tuesday. They are idle this week, Coach Rick Ray, because this is finals week, and it's a very important week for basketball players off the court.
Yeah, and you got to be careful about making sure that you're giving them enough time to succeed in the classroom, but also doing enough on the basketball court that they don't get out of sync and, more importantly, out of shape. So we always try to give them as much time as possible. We took today off. Obviously, we'll take another day off. I can't remember if it's Thursday or Wednesday. But we give them at least 2 days off during the finals week, and then obviously want to make sure we're still getting prepared for our opponents. But this is more important for us to make sure they're taking care of the academics, because once they get done with this week here, we'll have a ton of time that we can get better on the court. And I always like to say that's our NBA time. All these guys want to be NBA players or professional players. Well, now it's the only time that you have where you don't have classes, so you can really focus in on your game, so we can bring them back in and do some skill work with them and get better on the court. And to me, it's all about how they embrace that. If they don't embrace coming back in and working on their game, then you really don't want to be a pro.
Drake University, it was only the second time they've ever played each other in men's basketball. The only other time, 2006, we were in Fairbanks, Alaska, at the top of the World Classic. I don't even know if that even exists anymore, the top of the World Classic. And they played there. Drake won the game, but that was only the second time that SEMO and Drake have ever played, but not your first time in Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah, I actually went to college there. Grandview College is in Des Moines as well, too, so I spent actually 4 years there. 2 years there as in college, and then 2 years after that working. So my first job ever was a high school math teacher at Roosevelt High School right there in Des Moines. And then the guy who hired me is Greg Lansing, who was the head coach at Indiana State. So my first job that I ever had was a freshman high school coach over at Des Moines Roosevelt. And really I did it as a student teacher because they were in a bind. And then the guy that I played for, Nick Nurse, who's now the head coach with the Toronto Raptors.
World champion Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, he always says that too when I talk to him. He makes sure that he points it out, though. So he was in need, Greg was, of a coach because he lost somebody late. And so my coach, Nick Nurse, they were friends and said, hey, you ought to have Rick do it. And I was like, I don't want to be a coach. I mean, I just want to do my student teaching and get done here. So, but, as a college student, it was a stipend for being that high school freshman coach. When they told me there was some money involved in it, I said, yeah, I think I'll do that because obviously as a college student you need that money. So I did that, did it the second year, and that's how I started my coaching career right there in Des Moines, Iowa.
Anybody that knows you knows you're also a college football guy, and yesterday was a big day for college football. I think, once Georgia lost, the question about whether or not Oklahoma was going to be in was solved. We knew Oklahoma. So we knew the four. The only drama was, would LSU leapfrog Ohio State to number one? And that's exactly what happened. Your Clemson guy, obviously, Dabo, and the Tigers are in there at number 3. And it looks like, they will match up with the Ohio State Buckeyes. That should be a really fun game to watch. What were your thoughts on the college football season and your Clemson Tigers still being alive?
Well, I thought the number one thing, this is the first time that I thought the seeding was really important because now you got a number 2 versus number 3 where you got two teams that are 13-0 that I think it was really important because I don't think either LSU or Ohio State wanted to have their first matchup be against Clemson because that's like a national championship game in itself. And so that was really important, who got the number 1 seed. And then that number 4 seed I always thought came down to everybody kept talking about Utah, but no one ever thought about, hey, Oregon might beat Utah, and it becomes a moot point. So it really boiled down to the Big 12 championship game, the Pac-12 championship game, and then at that point in time, was Baylor actually involved in that too? So I thought if Baylor would have won that game, they deserved to be in as well too, instead of a 2-loss team. So it's interesting, but I tell you what, it's actually at this point in time, Clemson is favored, even though they're number 3 seed, over Ohio State. But the other interesting part of that too was if Ohio State would have got the number 1 seed, okay, they get to choose where they want to play at. And so, but then they would have been playing, Clemson maybe. And so now it's like, hey, I know that for our fan base, it's closer to play in Atlanta, but it's also closer to play for Clemson and Georgia if they would have got in. So they would have went all the way out to Scottsdale, even though if they had that choice, because they want to avoid that home base that Georgia or Clemson would have had if they would happen to be the 4 seed.
I know you're an Alabama guy too. I think they came in at like 12 in the final. You can't convince me there are 11 better college football teams than Alabama.
Well, I just think that that's everybody, like all these like decade of like wanting for Alabama to be bad. This is their chance to make up for it. But as you know, it just makes no sense. So just think about this. Georgia has 2 losses, right? So they were the number 4 team coming into it. And so they lose to LSU. They drop down to number 5. Their 2 losses that Georgia had was to South Carolina. South Carolina beat Georgia at home. And so Alabama stomped South Carolina at South Carolina. And their other loss was to LSU, at home. And LSU just stomped Georgia in Atlanta. And so you can tell me that there's a 8 ranking difference between those 2 teams with the same resume, but it just makes no sense. But, hey, it is what it is. But I
would almost bet you the television ratings would be much better had Alabama got the number 4 versus Oklahoma.
Well, there's no question about it. But here's the thing that's going to be interesting. It's going to be the first time in Nick Saban's career that he's going to have to deal with are players actually going to play in the bowl game, because they've always been playing for a national championship. And so now all of these guys that are going to be NFL first-round maybe draft picks, I mean, do they risk playing in that game? And so
that's becoming a trend.
It's going to happen. So a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who's a guaranteed first-round draft pick, is he going to play in that game?
Maybe not.
I seriously doubt it. And then you got some of those guys that are offensive tackles like Jedrick Willis and Alex Leatherwood, and you keep going down the line, Xavier McKinney as safeties. Those guys are going to be first-round draft picks. Are they actually going to play in those games? And, I don't think those guys are. So it's going to be interesting to see how Alabama deals with that, because they've never had to deal with it before.
Just a gut feel for you. Tua Tagovailoa gave an interview to one of the newspapers down in Alabama and basically said, if I'm a top 15 first-round draft pick, then I will go in the draft even though he's injured. Anything after that, I don't know if I'm going to go. Gut feel. You think he's coming back to Alabama, or has he played his last game?
No, he's done. Okay. I mean, it just doesn't make sense for him to come back to college because his history of injuries and the risk of being injured again. The only way he's going to improve his draft stock is people say, well, he could just come back and rehab and then go back into the draft. But people still want to go see proof. He's put up enough tape that you know who he is and what he's about. So him going back and rehabbing for a whole year, in order for him to improve his so-called draft stock, is that he would have to play. And so I just can't imagine. You know this, every draft, there's always quarterbacks that end up getting drafted and moving up. I mean, it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Who? And the
Mitchell Trubisky is a perfect
biggest
example.
case is Mitchell Trubisky, a guy that they traded up for, and they passed over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and traded up to get Mitchell Trubisky.
Bears fans say that on sports talk radio every day.
Yeah, so I mean, there's going to be somebody at some point in time where they always end up reaching for quarterbacks. So I can't imagine that at the end of the day that he's still going to be sitting there wondering should I have come out, because people are going to reach for quarterbacks.
Coach, we always enjoy catching up with you, and we'll do it again next week. It will be a 7 p.m. tip-off Sunday at Youngstown State University. Coach, thanks so much for your time. We'll see you on Sunday.
Thank you very much.
All right, that is the Red Hawks head coach, Rick Ray. That's going to do it for the Coaches Show here from Wings, Etc. We've got the Stephen A. Smith Show coming up next on ESPN Radio. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody. So long from Wings, Etc.